Greetings, class. It's Dr. Keisha here, and we are going to get started with Chapter 1. But before we do that, I'd like to just give you a quick overview of how these online lectures will work. So first, you'll notice that each of the first slides of each of the chapters will have a Bible verse listed and a photo of me, and that's just so that we can connect with one another. Even though it's in a virtual environment, I want you to somewhat connect with me and see a picture of me, as well as me giving you a piece of motivation from the Bible. That is just something purely to do to connect with you in this virtual environment. So let's get started. Chapter 1 is all about learning what MIS is, what it consists of, and why it may be important to you as you embark on a job market, especially in business. MIS touches all phases of our life, and so we're going to hone in on some of the most important parts of information systems and how you can use those to prepare yourself to be competitive on the job market. So the first slide here is an outline, and each of the chapters has an outline slide. That is how you should take your notes through the lecture and throughout your readings and any other research you're doing for MIS for this specific chapter, because this is the material in which you will be tested upon. So these 4 points here, while they're open-ended and are multifaceted, they contain the information that you need to know for the exam. So what I would suggest is, as you're taking notes, as you're watching this, leave some space in your notebook. So maybe write down number 1, maybe leave a full page or half a page and before you write number 2. So as I'm going through the lecture, you can take notes, write down my examples, make quotes from stories that I may use or any imagery, so that when you go back to study, you have essentially created your exam prep. You've created a study guide for yourself. All right, so let's get started. What is MIS? Well, as you know, the major is actually called Business Systems and Analytics, BSA. However, the field in which someone may be hired is typically called Information Systems, Management Information Systems, and you would have probably heard of Information Technology, the IT department. But within that IT department, there are usually MIS professionals, and those people are more concerned with how systems are used to achieve a business strategy. So let's say that we're going to open a new branch of our bank, and we need to know what systems do we need to have in place so that we could achieve our goals, whether that be attracting new individuals to bank with us, or maybe new small businesses or corporate businesses. What systems do we need? So that could be a CRM system or some type of calendar tracking system for our appointments. That's more of what MIS professionals do, whereas IT personnel focus on the coding of the systems and making the systems work. So before you get to a coder, you need an MIS professional, someone who understands business. Moore's Law is one that we typically quote because it's what has enabled us to really advance the field of MIS and information technology, because essentially technology has just grown so rapidly that now, even on our mobile phones, our mobile devices, we have the computing power of what computers had several years ago. But now we have that right in the palm of our hands. So you can see on the screen there about the transistors and how that typically might double every 18 months or so. And Gordon Moore, who was over at Intel, he came up with this particular quote because he noticed the trend of just how swift technology was growing and just doubling every 18 months. Let's talk about the 5 components of an information system. You can see on the screen here, we have somewhat of a graphic that displays the five. Let's see if you can see my cursor here. The five components. So on the left side, we have the computer side. This is hardware and software. You're familiar with hardware. It's anything you can physically touch, of course. And software, Microsoft Word, Microsoft Excel, any application that you use, apps on your phone, those are pieces of software. Right in the middle, we have data. Data is usually an input, or in this graphic, the bridge. It's the bridge between the computer side and the human side. So what exactly is the human side? Well, procedures. So when we're dealing with an information system, which these five components consist of, we have procedures. There are steps that you go by. Let's say you begin work at a restaurant, and there's a procedure of how to open the store or how to close the store for the day. Those lists of procedures that you go through in the system of, how to cash out for the day, how to close the books, all of those are procedures. And then last but not least, people. People are important because without people, there would be no need for an information system, and the people have to use it. So we want a user-friendly system. We want a system that's easy for us to accept, and we want it to look easy and feel easy, and we want it to be easy to use. So these are the five important components. So you have your actors, your instructors, and then the bridge. So that's what I really want you to focus in on, is knowing the difference between the computer side, the human side, and what each of these represent. Now, as we become more automated and have systems that do work without the need of a human, you'll notice that we shift from so much dependence on the human side over to more dependence on the hardware and software. But when it comes to the difficulty of change, that really is more on the people side. It's more difficult and challenging to get people to change their procedures and how they do things, or to use a new system, than it is to just simply switch out the hardware or the software. So those are things to focus on when you are in an IT department. And regardless of what your major is, you will at some point work with the IT department to help bring new systems on, or you may give your input or test a new system. So it's important that you're familiar with these terms. So which one of these five components is most important? What would you think? Well, I hope that you said people, because people are the most important in everything that we do in IT. Which would you say is the least disruptive? And what I mean by that is, if we had to switch something out or make a change, what would be least disruptive to the business? I would definitely say on the computer side. If I switch out, let's say something happens to your Mac and you get a new Mac, or your iPad and you get a different iPad, or if you're on Windows and you get a different Windows. Now, if you switch from Windows to Mac, it may be somewhat disruptive, but it still wouldn't be as disruptive as switching your job completely, or switching you to a whole nother business, or switching your exact steps and procedures in which you do your open the store or close the store. Those people side items are more disruptive. So what about some job related positions? And this is important because I'm going to ask you some questions about a business analyst, because that is one of the main roles for an MIS professional. And you may have to work with a business analyst at some point in your career. And that is a person who truly is concerned about bringing systems in-house that will help the organization move forward. So whatever the organizational strategy is to reach our financial goals, reach our customer acquisition goals, or whatever that may be for that particular business, the BA is that middle person between the C-suite, CEO, CIO, and the end users, to make sure that everybody is in alignment And so the BA, while they may or may not do some coding, their main role is to understand how technology plays into the business. So there are some other roles here. Systems analysts, they might deal more with system requirements and designing. They may do some testing. They may do some programming. It just depends on the organization. Some larger organizations the system analyst may not do a lot of coding. They may have just straight programmers for that. Some smaller organizations may have the systems analyst does the coding as well, and the BA may do more of the systems analyst role. So it really just depends. And you can see some salary ranges. These salary ranges have moved up a bit, but not considerably much. You see how wide the range of salary is here. There's also a great video that you can go and watch on your own of the life of a business analyst at Google, I believe. All right, now this just again want to drive home the point of the difference between MIS and more technical careers. More business focused MIS, business analysts, project managers, they deal more with the processes. And when I say processes, I mean procedures. So accounts receivable, accounts payable, acquiring a new customer, or call center procedures. All of those different procedures may need a system to support it. And so more of the BSA or MIS field deals with that, versus technology, your more IT or computer science related fields have database designers, programmers, test engineers, hardware specialists, more people along the more technical, hands-on nature. All right, this is the last slide, so hang in there because there's quite a bit to cover here on this slide. So I'm going to give you a story. So Jennifer is a new employee at a company, we'll just say at a small accounting firm. And Jennifer has been working here for maybe a month. So she's still new. She's still learning the ropes. However, her boss, let's call her Stacy, calls Jennifer into her office and says, "Jennifer, I'm sorry to tell you this, but you're fired." Jennifer has no idea why she would be fired. She does everything that her boss asks of her. She takes good notes. She goes back to the boss and asks for clarification. She makes sure that before she does anything, that she gets the proper approvals and that she's told exactly what to do and how to do it. Can you think of any problems with that? I bet you can. Sounds like she lacks some important non-routine skills. So these 4 non-routine skills you will see again on your exam, but more importantly, they will help you navigate through life in ways that most textbooks don't teach you. And in MIS field, you will have to use these skills quite a bit. And so we're going to use these skills throughout our MIS material for this course. So there's an acronym that I would like for you to write down and remember. And I call it CASA, C-A-S-A. You've heard CASA, me CASA, Sue CASA. I'm using this so that it's easy for you to remember the 4 non-routine skills. So the first one, I'm not going to go in order of the screen, but the first one for this C will be collaboration skills. What is collaboration? We've all been there. We're doing it through this class, having to collaborate with others to reach a goal, maybe on some questions that we have, or a project or a task. We come together as a group and we must work together effectively. So working together for a common goal. This is very familiar to you, I'm sure. Collaboration skills. The second one, abstract reasoning skills. Abstract reasoning skills are the ability to make and use models. So creating a model such as the 5 components of an information system. That's a model. Okay, so whenever we can create a model, a representation of something that's real, such as maybe if I have an Excel spreadsheet of all of my inventory that's actually in a warehouse somewhere, that's abstract reasoning. All right, so that's the A, collaboration skills, abstract reasoning, and the S is systems thinking. With systems thinking, we're concerned with the whole process from beginning to end, and we understand the way that something downstream at the end of the process may be impacted if you make a change to something at the beginning of the process. So here's an example. Let's say you are thirsty. You go to the kitchen sink and you turn on the faucet and water comes out. Can you use systems thinking to trace that water output through your faucet, trace it all the way back to the original raw data source? Where does that water originally come from? That's systems thinking. Thinking about the entire system before you make any changes because it could impact someone else. And the last one for the A is going to be ability to experiment, for your experimentation skills. Ability to experiment. Here, we want to take reasoned action. We need to take initiative and make it happen without continuing to go to someone else and asking, or without simply guessing. So you must take reasoned action. Do your research. Brainstorm possible solutions, possible avenues to get your job accomplished, and then analyze which you think would bring the best course of action and the best solution, and then choose one. So Jennifer lacked these 4 important skills. She wasn't willing to experiment, taking reasoned action. She wasn't a good collaborator, in terms of, which we'll have a whole chapter on collaboration, what it takes to get there. But she always wanted to know what someone else thought. She didn't bring forth her own ideas. And systems thinking, she lacked the ability to think about the entire process. And she wasn't very good at creating models that represented something real. So I want you to really look at these in your textbook. Make sure you have good notes on these 4 items, and make sure that you're well versed on those because you will see those again. So as we look at the outline again, you should now be more familiar with Moore's Law. Think about outsourcing and how now that we have such technology that allows us to do so much computing power, how has that impacted outsourcing? Well, I hope that you know now that certain jobs will be outsourced to the lowest bidder. For example, if I have a routine task, that can easily be outsourced. But if I have a non-routine task, so those managers who are really good at abstract reasoning, great collaborators, those people are hard to replace with outsourcing. So I want you to think about that. You understand MIS and some of the most important job positions and how the non-routine skills play in MIS, and you're able to discuss those. All right, let me know if you have any questions about the content presented here. And again, to reiterate, the only exam questions you will see or questions for your quiz, which is available, will come from these topics. So there's a lot to be covered in chapter 1, but I will not test you on things outside of this outline. All right, enjoy and let me know if you have any questions about any of the material.